Retro Game Connect.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Retro Game Connect. I'm Dan Mastriani.
I'm Ian Butterfield.
This is our first episode. Basically what we're going to do is going to be talking about classic games, telling you facts and figures about them. We're going to play the game, and then we're going to give you our feelings on them. Our first game is Star Wars Arcade for 32X. Star Wars Arcade was a launch game for the 32X. And I wanted to play it first because, quite frankly, I hate this thing. I hate the 32X. I hate hooking it up. Since I don't have the standard Genesis, it blocks the disk drive on my system, so I can't leave it hooked up. It's just a horrible cancer just growing out of the Genesis, and I don't like it.
Gotta admit, though, it's kind of cool that you can turn it into another console with putting something on it.
It was an interesting idea. It didn't do too well. It was like...
Pretty sure the only couple times that worked is when they had the SNES and the GameCube attachments that let you play Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance games on it.
I like those, and we'll probably be getting to them at some point in the future.
I smell Pokemon Silver in the distance.
I don't know. That one's kind of tough. I know we're going to have time to get into that. But we're talking about Star Wars Arcade today. So like I said, launch game. Came out in '94. The date I have is November 21st. I don't know how correct that is.
I'm only a few months older than it.
Haha. It's a little difficult to get release dates for games of that era. But I know that it was programmed in 4 months.
Wow.
Because this was originally an arcade game, obviously, which you can tell from the title.
I would imagine so.
It came out for the Model 1 hardware, which was Sega's 3D arcade hardware. It's very revolutionary at the time. Lots of revolutionary games came out for it. Virtua Fighter. I have an entire list here. You go Virtua Racing. A game called Wing War, which I've never heard of, but it was in 3D, which was pretty amazing at the time. I mean, on console, what was this competition? You had Star Fox, which had come out the year before this.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't have nearly as many polygons as the 32X can push, which we're going to see in a little while. So another interesting fact that I found out about this is that John Brandsetter worked on this. And people who are into video game history will know him as the inspiration for the TurboGrafx-16 mascot, Johnny Turbo. Johnny Turbo was a horribly ill-conceived mascot who did absolutely nothing to turn around the TurboGrafx-16's fortune in its waning days.
I would imagine so. I never heard of it. Then again, when this game came out, I was only a few months old.
There you go. Well, you can kind of see how successful it was because a year later, he's working for Sega.
Well, we know Sega isn't exactly that successful. Maybe it's a curse.
No, yeah. Well, this was actually their time of glory. The Genesis was probably their most successful system. Interesting thing about that is it was their least successful system in Japan. Japan hated it. The rest of the world loved it. Yeah, the Master System did all right in Japan. It was pretty much crushed by the Famicom, but so was everything else. So the Saturn did pretty well. The Dreamcast had games coming out for it like 10 years after they stopped producing the system. I think you can still get brand new Dreamcast games made by Homebrew.
Huh. Never owned one. Always thought the controller was a little awkward.
Controller is a little awkward, but it has some great games. I love it. I'm a big fan of the Dreamcast. A little off topic.
Then again, when you have hands like mine, a controller like this is kind of awkward.
You're dwarfing the controller. I did make sure, I didn't own a Genesis originally. I got into I was a Nintendo kid, had Nintendo systems all the way growing up. As an adult, when I finally had a job, I went to Funko Land, bought myself a Genesis, some games, built up my collection as time went on.
And this has nothing to do with the new Terminator movie coming out.
Okay, no, I see where we're going. The Terminator Genesis. Okay, took me a second. But yeah, I made sure I have the 6-button controllers, which is good because this game is going to play better with a 6-button controller. They had to make some sacrifices to get to work with 3 buttons. But
controller with 3 buttons. How retro.
Yes. I remember starting with 2, and people older than me had to start with 1.
And then there was the joystick.
Yes. The crosspad was that Nintendo came up with was actually a big innovation. But we can talk about that on a Nintendo episode. Right now, we'll talk about Sega Genesis. So this game is set, I think the original arcade game set is the Battle of Endor.
Would it be the Battle of Yavin, Trench Run?
Yeah,
it went inside the Death Star in the Battle of Endor.
Exactly. That's when
Star Wars geek.
That's why I'm saying that's where the game is set in the arcade.
Mm-hmm. It's on the inside.
It's on the inside, but
so I was looking at this, and it's on the outside of the Death Star.
This version,
I think we're in episode 4 here.
This version has some extra levels. So actually, you know what? I think this is something we should talk about while we're playing the game. So let's start it up.
Groovy. Gotta love that every Star Wars game you ever play always starts with that Star Wars and the Renegade paragraphs flying through space.
You have to have the title as well.
Oh, of course. I was reading the new comic books they're putting out, and they have it in all of them.
Oh, absolutely. It's very iconic. I don't know of any other movies that do it quite this way.
Well, most of them have, like, credits beforehand.
Yeah. Even movies that rip off Star Wars don't really do
They got kicked out of the Screen Actors Guild because of that.
Really? Because they didn't start with credits?
Because they didn't start with credits.
Because
if you remember, in the original movies, it was 20th Century Fox, Lucasfilm. On the tapes, you had THX, and then you have Star Wars. Well, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away,
right.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
And at the time, that was just unheard of. You always had some sort of opening credit sequence.
And also, they went through a few different versions, too. They added in A New Hope in later releases.
Yeah, because originally it was just Star Wars. And then it started talking about it. And then when they started doing the sequels, it was Star Wars, Episode 4, A New Hope.
Yeah.
So then everyone went, wait, what happened to 1 through 3?
Well, you found out eventually, but you may not have liked the answer.
Yeah. Important story could have been done a little better.
Yeah, I think the polygons are pretty good. Again, I mentioned this earlier. The competition, Star Fox.
Yeah.
That needed a special chip in the cartridge, and it had far less polygons than this did.
What I'm appreciating is the sound, actually. The music is pretty good. It doesn't sound distorted, and the sound effects are all there.
Yeah,
you can hear that iconic laser blast coming from the X-Wing Starfighter, which, if you're familiar with Star Wars, maybe I'm a little more than most, you hear that and you go, X-Wing.
Absolutely. As you can see, there's a 32X enhanced mode, and that has extra levels that weren't in the arcade, which is why it now has Episode 4 content.
Yeah, because I can see there's the second Death Star right there on the main menu.
Yeah, this is interesting. I think this is an artifact of it being a launch game. The Super 32X. It's only called the Super 32X in Japan. In the US, it's just the 32X. So they were working on this while they still had development hardware. I was reading an interview with one of the programmers who was talking about when they were making it in 4 months, they didn't even have final hardware. So they were crunching like crazy to get this done.
Listen, we need you to make these tires for this car, okay? Except the car's not finished yet. We're not exactly sure how big the wheel hub's going to be. But, just figure it out.
Yeah. They were saying that at one point they were saying, we might cut the processor power on this. And they were like, oh, God, don't do that. Don't do that. And that would have been fun. But
well.
Yeah, let's take it off. We'll do the enhanced mode.
Pilot and
gunner. Yeah, we'll do two-player mode. So I'll be the gunner.
We get the Y-Wing.
We do.
Attention, all wing pilot.
He's not a very good impression.
That is not a very good impression.
So you're driving. I don't think we've started playing yet.
Hyperdrive.
Yep.
Enemy fighters.
Why does he sound Italian?
Wow.
Hey, it's a trap!
Oh no, inverted controls.
Oh, my.
I hate inverted controls. For the gunner too? Jeez. Alright, I gotta find my buttons. Alright, see that lock on? That means you can shoot your missiles. I think you are in charge of that.
Oh, I changed perspective.
I think that was me.
No, that was me.
Okay.
Alright, you got the gunner going.
Yep. Now I'm switching it.
Oh!
Okay, I found the plasma
figure
missiles
out the bombs.
on the X, yes. Oh, there are ties behind us. Alright, I'm gonna try to shoot these guys.
I'm not sure how I'm supposed to slow down.
It is, I remember I actually did read the manual. It's A and B are your throttles. So A speeds up and B slows down, or vice versa. Well, I'm looking at the wrong cursor too, which is exciting. I think we have to, if you see those green marks above the radar, that is the amount of TIE fighters we have to kill. So to beat this, before the time runs down, we have to kill that many TIE fighters.
I think I got one of those TIE fighters.
Yeah, we got. Alright, I'm just shooting lasers with abandon because I'm pretty sure they are unlimited.
I'm hoping that these missiles are too. Oh no, I can see the proton torpedo. It's a regenerative ammunition now.
Okay, that's good.
There we go. TIE bomber.
I guess you might have gone too far away, or did we? No, we knocked out.
No autopilot.
Okay, we knocked out all we had to. Good.
Making a jump to hyperspace.
Wipe out enemy fighters.
Wipe out enemy fighters, eh? Hey, yo, it's a trap.
Oh my God! So we gotta take out some Star Destroyers too. You don't want to get too close to those. I think they will murder you pretty quickly.
Well, let's find out.
I'll go ahead and shoot at them anyway.
Oh, we got TIE interceptors behind us.
Oh, okay. No, my screen is still there. See, I like being able to see the ship, but I don't like that you don't have radar in this mode. So you can't see if guys are behind you. There's a little bit of pop-in. As you can see, you can't see guys from too far away. So there are still definitely some technical limitations.
Oh, we have been hit.
But when you consider that the Model 1 was actually developed with Lockheed Martin, so it was incredibly advanced hardware. So being able to play a game of pretty good fidelity at home, I think that's very impressive. Especially with an add-on rather than a whole new system.
TIE's behind us. Oh, now they're behind us again.
This is notorious for being pretty difficult. I was reading a lot of reviews. They were mentioning good luck getting to the end of this game. I would like to at least get to the trench run. I mean, that's the iconic Star Wars moment. If we were missing the trench run, I feel like we failed our viewers.
There we go.
And TIE's behind us.
Okay, we literally have them on our tail, and I can't do anything about it.
Can you? I know this is the wrong game for it, but can you do a barrel roll?
Oh. Okay, apparently zooming out, you can get unrealistic aim. I'd also like to note that you're firing from the engines. The turret is on top of the cockpit.
It's okay, it's okay.
I'd like to note that this says take evasive action, and you can do just about as much evasive action in this as the Millennium Falcon took. We got through it.
Yes,
we can take about as much evasive action in this as the Millennium Falcon took when it was getting chased by a Star Destroyer as it was escaping Tatooine in Episode 4. You can float a little to the right.
We had to kill 25 of them. You didn't notice, I think you turned away, but we just flew right through a Star Destroyer.
Awesome. That's so metal. The Force is strong with us.
There you go. I'm trying, but it's really hard to get used to these inverted controls for your cursor. It would make more sense if I was flying, but
yeah, I'm managing with the flight.
I'm glad I gave you that job because I've always been lousy at space sims. So I tried playing Wing Commander back in the day, and I was terrible at that.
I was hilariously good at Battlefront 2 space battles.
There you go.
Nope, one of us changed the perspective.
Not me. I've just been hammering the C button. Woo! And hoping someone will fly right in front of my cursor. Which worked out in the last stage, because somebody did.
I'd really like to note that TIE bomber got destroyed behind us.
Yeah, don't worry.
With blasters that were shooting forward. So, the realism in this game.
Well, another thing added for the home version was this view. I believe that the arcade version did not have the third-person view. It was cockpit only.
They actually have what is kind of an updated version of this in the arcade now.
Yeah, there were a couple of sequels. This was the first one, but they also did Star Wars Trilogy Arcade.
Oh, I love that game. I've beaten that game.
Yeah, this one was actually really rare in arcades, I understand. I've never seen it. I think I've run across the Star Wars Trilogy Arcade, but I've never seen this one.
I've played the Trilogy Arcade one so much. They used to have it at the local movie theater.
Nice. When I was very young.
When I was a young warthog.
Hey, both owned by Disney now. But when I was very young, we took a trip to Las Vegas. We went to Circus Circus, and I got to go to the arcade, and they had a sit-down cabinet for Star Wars, the arcade game made by Atari, which was a completely different game featuring vector graphics. So if you're not familiar with vector graphics, they're basically a lot like polygons, except they're not filled in. They're just lines.
And they're not Porygons, which are Pokemon.
No, but
I think we have like 2
that was actually what I thought this was when I bought it.
Porygons?
No, I did not think it was a Pokemon. I did know the original 151 pretty well at one point, though I never got past that. You know, I had no one
That's a
to play
discussion for another time.
Storm the Imperial Death Star and wipe out enemy fighters.
The Imperial Death Star! Ayo! It's fully operational here!
And, alright, so I think we can actually shoot these X-Wings, so let's try not to do that.
Oh, hey, that was an actual sound clip.
There we go.
Oh, I think we're about to fly after that 2-meter hole in the Death Star.
It always weirds me out how the torpedoes curve. I'm not really sure what's up with that.
The Force is strong with that.
Yeah. I mean...
Gosh darn it, Darth Vader. Get out of here.
Boy.
You don't belong here.
You this heavy breathing kind of creeps me out. I feel like you should be leaving creepy voice messages. I don't know.
Fun Star Wars factoid. The phrase, "Luke, I am your father," was never actually uttered in the Star Wars universe.
Another one of those quotes.
Yeah,
like, play it again, Sam, and beam me up, Scotty. And
he actually says, "No, I am your father."
Yes, that's right.
I could reenact the whole thing for you if you
I'm
really
sure,
wanted,
I'm sure
but
you could.
that's
I do
time
not
for
doubt
a different
that.
show.
Knocking down these turrets doesn't seem to count.
Except for them not blasting us.
No,
which is
I
always
mean,
nice.
it's helpful in that respect, but doesn't seem to count toward our total. Uh-oh.
Oh, we might have been hit a couple times.
Yeah. R2's upset us.
No one asked them. Her. Do
It's
droids
a robot.
have gender?
I wouldn't think they would. Oh, boy. That's probably a problem.
We have this TIE fighter that's just circling us.
Yeah. Probably, is it Darth, you think?
We died.
exploded. That's no good. We were doing well, too. But I remember, being able to sit down, and it was a very cool thing that you got in the arcade that you don't really get to see in home games.
The sound kind of sounds like the jump to hyperdrive, but
Storm the Imperial Death Star and wipe
Definitely better than the Admiral Akbar impression.
that is a horrible Admiral Akbar impression.
It's really awful.
See, this is a sound clip from the movie.
They're coming in. 3 marks at 210.
See, that's from the original movie.
That was an easy one, too. I could have gotten 3 shots there. I wasn't paying attention. That was
I love
my
how
fault.
they
I'm
take up your
sorry.
time getting you to the place. Like, I could have destroyed so many TIE fighters in that time. You jerks.
This was originally an arcade game. And what is the purpose of arcade games?
To
Taking all your money.
make people happy.
Yes, but also getting you to spend all your money. I'm old enough to remember arcades.
We
You
have
need a
Dave-
lot of quarters.
I've played arcades. I've been to Dave & Buster's now, too.
It's just not the same. So I'm hoping it refills our time when we get into the trench.
I think so. It's probably like another level. It's
It'd
gonna-
be pretty lame if it didn't. Well, I don't know. I think the game
I
only
don't-
has like 6 levels. So
I don't know what this node thing is that I keep destroying, but I'm going to destroy it.
I don't know. I think it probably shoots at us.
Well, I can't get a lock on the turrets.
So I think one of the flaws of this game is there's a lot of shooting down TIE fighters. It's
And-
not all that fun.
Well, you're also
mean,
just
some
sort
of
of
it is good.
shooting.
Yeah.
I feel like if you were shooting and flying, because I am actually quite enjoying the flying. And I figured out what evasive action... Oh! Haha!
Oh, we did it.
I figured out what evasive action means. Just sort of fly around like this, and they might not hit you.
There you go. All right. Target the exhaust port.
It's only about 2 meters wide. We'll only have one shot at this.
Well, I used to bullseye womp rats back home. They're only about 2 meters.
Were you in your T-16?
Oh, yes, of course. What else would I do?
You got to blast those proton torpedoes.
I'm trying. I'm trying to also, blow up the TIE fighters. So if there are no TIE fighters to fire
I'm pretty sure the proton torpedoes are just like getting fired at us.
Yeah. This screen is a little busy though. I'm having trouble keeping an eye on my cursor.
Oh,
the green cursor kind of really blends in. This background is really busy. I'm losing my cursor a lot.
Okay, apparently the flashy things that are structures are shooting proton torpedoes. Okay. So focus on the proton torpedoes and those.
I just keep losing my cursor, and I'm not sure where I am.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
And they didn't even bother with a voice for that.
Wow. Wow, not even an impersonator.
You underestimate the power of the dark side.
All right, apparently I got more...
Well, you were actually shooting things.
Yeah. All right.
Well, shall we try the arcade bit?
Yeah, we'll give it a quick shot. I think it's pretty much the same thing, but shorter, but...
Well, it's probably just a trench run. Rebel attack, training. Rebel attack.
Yeah, why not?
Pilot and gunner.
There you go.
Attention all wing pilots. Stand by to receive orders.
Okay, so far this is seeming a lot the same.
Yeah.
Except we jumped right to the Star Destroyer bit.
Right.
And we're in an X-Wing.
Whatever.
Yeah, we're in an X-Wing.
We are in an X-Wing.
There are problems with this. There's only one seat in an X-Wing.
I'm guessing that's why they added
the Y-Wing
to the home port.
Hey, at least you're actually firing out of the cannons.
I am, that's good.
Yeah, whoever programmed that on the Y-Wing was kind of drunk.
Again, whole thing, 4 months on non-final hardware.
You can watch the movie and go, oh, they shoot out of the little turret on the top of the cockpit.
I'm just saying, you tend to forget things when you're cramming, working 18-hour days, sleeping at your desk. I feel like that's the kind of environment where you may forget things.
I forget nothing. It's not true. I forgot a lot of things. Got 2 more TIE fighters. I see them on the radar. Now I don't. No, there's one behind us. There's 2 behind us. I'm going slow, but they're still just behind us. Only the Star Destroyers are shooting at us. They really sent their A squad after us.
To be fair, does the Empire really have an A squad?
The 501st.
Oh, okay. Are they guys you never see in the movies because they can actually hit things?
Pretty much. They were Darth Vader's secret troop.
In other words, they're the troop they added after the movies.
Because they were actually still clones from the Clone War, not the clones... Oh, we're attacking the Superstar Destroyer. Well, that's different.
Yeah, it is.
Let me worry about TIE fighters and flying. You worry about proton torpedoes.
I'll try.
So that's what keeps killing us. But yeah, no, when they started doing Stormtroopers, they started changing up the genetic templates because there was a rebellion on Camino, which is where the clones were originally made.
Yes, they were made in the back of El Camino, I know.
Yes. Weren't we all? They just, like, throw every proton torpedo at you. Okay, I'm going to put the throttle to the max and see if I can just fly us through this. Whew!
Might be a good idea because I'm losing track of my cursor. It's very annoying.
Okay, top right corner, left.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh, we were doing so well.
You underestimate the power of the dark side.
Well, all right.
Oh, he told us, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
I actually found that quite enjoyable for it being such an old game.
Oh, so it being old means it had to be bad?
Well, I have found when I'm playing some older games that they definitely made them a lot more difficult than modern games, and it'll kind of aggravate me, especially those ones that are based in the arcade where you have credits and lives. It's just kind of weird, and you have no save file. You know, I grew up in the time of save files.
Well, the technology wasn't quite there yet. Think about when they first started putting batteries in thing. That was a huge step forward. Before that, you had to put in gigantic passwords.
Yes.
there were actually still a few Game Boy Advance games that you had to put in passwords. Which
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Terrible idea.
Black Pearl. Oh, I could not play that game.
Yeah. Who wants to put a password in on a portable game? That's awful. But the Sega CD does actually have a battery backup. I don't know if it stays on when it's unplugged. I may have erased all my saves when I unplugged this thing. The technology took a while. The Saturn used an actual battery. You put the CR2332, the little flat watch battery. So that was what you'd use to back up the Saturn. And when that died, oops, there go all your saves. Fortunately, I have a backup card for that, which is what I use to keep all my saves on. But
well, I know some of the Game Boy Color games have the batteries because I was reading about how, because I'm a big Pokemon fan, if you haven't picked up on that.
I got that impression.
The original Game Boy Color games had the batteries in them,
right.
And that is what saved your file. And so people have started to lose their original files. However, when it made the leap to the Game Boy Advance and had the battery in it, the battery was used to support the clock, but it managed to keep the save files.
Well, that's immersive technology. Starting in the 80s, they were able to put batteries in there to power I think it was just basically SRAM, And they used the battery to make sure there would continue to be power to it so that it wouldn't forget your data. But eventually that battery would die and you'd lose your data and you'd be out of luck.
It was a very short-term plan.
Yeah. Well, it was the best they could do at the time. Back then it was amazing to even have that. A lot of the games that had the save batteries were actually originally on floppy disk. In Japan,
floppy disk.
In Japan where they had the Famicom disk system, which was basically a floppy disk for your Famicom.
Those of you who are wondering what floppy disks are, when you're in Microsoft Word and you go to click the save button, that little icon is actually a floppy disk. Just FYI.
Yeah, there's hard disks that we use now are obviously extensions of that technology.
Yeah.
But there's so much more capacity.
Except you can't do the thing where you pull the slider back and it just goes, and you can't just sit there for hours doing that for no reason whatsoever.
No.
Because you were just bored in class.
That's true. They added that technology. I mean, nowadays, we have flash memory that doesn't need to be powered all the time.
Yeah.
But, that's a more recent development. They didn't have that back then. The best they could do was put the battery in. So you can save things only for so long. What are you going to do? But the arcade games, they had to make money. You don't have them in your house. You have them in a place where you're going to go to play video games.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to extract as much money from you as they could and as little time as they could. So they needed to get people to keep putting in quarters. So they made them ridiculously hard.
And when you beat an arcade game, you feel really accomplished. I beat the Star Wars Trilogy arcade game in about $1.50 at 50 cents a play.
Nice.
I was happy about that.
That's quarter feeding. That's actually interesting. It's only in later games that you got the technique where you could just keep putting in the quarters. Earlier games wouldn't let you continue right where you left off, so you had to get good at them.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that learn all the ins and outs of the AI. Exactly, Pac-Man. There's a safe spot in the maze where you can go take a bathroom break when you're trying to break the record.
I thought people just wore adult diapers when they did that.
I know that's also technique. They have to eat too, so you can't just.
Well, you only need one hand to play Pac-Man.
Pac-Man doesn't use any buttons.
It's not like Pac-Man has a laser gun.
Arcades, quarter sucker. That design came over to the home console games
because they didn't really know anything else.
Right, exactly. That's where they'd developed these because getting technology in the home that could play these things took a while before they could make something that was cheap enough. I mean, we talked about the Famicom, the NES in the U.S. earlier. The technology in that was from the 70s. The chip in the Genesis. The Genesis runs off Motorola 68000. The Motorola 68000, also used in early Macintosh, came out in 1979.
God.
Yeah, this technology was well established, which means they were able to get it cheap enough that they sell it in a mass market home console. And you also have to keep, we talked about floppy disks earlier. Back then, you thought, wow, I've got a floppy disk that can hold a whole megabyte 1.44 megabytes. That's amazing.
Yeah, now they're really obsolete because you can have a little chip about this big holding 64 gigabytes.
Right. I mean, we're recording this video on a little flash drive this big.
Yeah.
32 gigs. Right?
That's where all our game footage just went. Just right into this little thing.
Yeah, 32 gigs, right? But that's another thing that's gotten better as time goes on. Back in the 80s and the 90s, when everything was on cartridge, it was really hard to get storage space. You had to cram those things full. Yeah. So they made it harder so they would last longer. Because if you could beat the game in a half hour, people probably wouldn't buy your game.
No. Well, I mean, in general, people don't like beating a game in half an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, I know if I went and bought the new Halo game and beat that in a half an hour or an hour, I'd be like, what is going on here? I want my money back.
Exactly. So they had to make as much use of the very limited space they had as they could. You see a lot of games, they have to cut levels and such. They had to cut levels and such because they couldn't fit it all in the cartridge. You know, they tried to make it sound like they were bigger by talking about them in states of megabits instead of megabytes. You'd see like, 8 megabit cartridge. And like, okay, well, that's only like less than 1 megabit.
No.
I'm sure I've got my conversions.
I mean,
incorrect,
I know that in some older stuff, like in the original Mario games, you can actually see certain pixels get, certain things get reused just with a different color.
Oh, absolutely.
The clouds and the bushes are the same sprite with a different color.
That was the trick to push the NES as far as they possibly could.
Yeah.
And, you had to do things like that to get as much content as you could in the games. As time goes on, they had more and more. You look at a Neo Geo cartridge, back when, again, everything had to be on chips. Neo Geo cartridges are like this big. I would say they are the size of a VHS tape, but I'm not sure how many people watching this will know how big a VHS tape is.
That's like a DVD. I was just going to say like a DVD, but a cassette, but I'm not sure they'll know what a cassette is. Watch Guardians of the Galaxy. You see a cassette, okay? Like that, but big, and it played video.
Exactly. Yes, Neo Geo cartridges were huge because they just had put tons and tons of chips in there so they could get over 100 megs or whatever data.
They should have just started calling them Lays.
Okay. That made me lose my train of thought. You're messing me up. Anyway, the big cartridges, gigantic. You could only fit so much in it. They had to be as efficient as possible.
I was actually surprised at the amount of enemies in this game. How they had not only a TIE fighter, but the TIE interceptor and the TIE bomber, and they could support the turrets firing at you, the Star Destroyers, and the Super Star Destroyer, as well as the random turrets shooting proton torpedoes at you. That seemed like a lot for that to be able to process.
Absolutely. I think they did a great job with the graphics, considering the technology.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier where Star Fox. You look at Star Fox, how few polygons the ships have. Everything is like kind of spindly. It was a good playing game, but the graphics are very simple. And considering this came out only a year after Star Fox and has so many more polygons on a home system. I mean, previously, there were some Genesis carts that had add-on chips in the cartridges so they could do 3D. There was a Virtual Racing for Sega's Genesis. But all the extra hardware in that, I think that cartridge cost like $100 when it came out. $100 in 90s money.
My God.
Yeah, so this is actually a very expensive cartridge. So for the 32X to be able to throw that many polygons, and obviously what's going to be a much less expensive cartridge, it's very impressive. So, I don't think the concept was bad of the 32X, extending the power of your Genesis. I think, we can talk about the 32X hardware a little because we're never going to play it again. Never. Never, ever. Never. Watch me like 100 episodes from now. I'll got another 32X game. Like, okay, I brought the 32X back. But right now I'm saying never 32X again. Only other game I have is Doom. If we're going to play that, there are so many better versions of Doom. It's not even like
they have the original one on like the Xbox 360 marketplace.
Exactly. It's not even like hilariously bad. It's not especially good. It's not hilariously bad.
And if you want to play with the engine, we can always just play Star Wars Dark Forces.
Yeah, I've got Doom on a memory stick now. It's ridiculous. It's so easy to play. Getting off topic. 32X hardware expands, as a coprocessor. Some people got some decent performance out of it. It just wasn't supported. The problem was that at the time it came out, people already knew about the Saturn. Saturn was on its way, so people were like, why am I paying like $130 for a 32X when I can save up my money and buy a Saturn? It's going to be more powerful.
And with the Saturn, they could put a ring on it. I make jokes.
I see that. Well, allegedly. But, it's going to have a CD built in. You're not going to have the whole monstrosity, the tower of power, as some people call it. I don't know if there are pictures on the internet of people have like the original model Sega CD that goes under the original model Genesis with the 32X piled on top of it, this huge stack of video game hardware, which all has to have its own power adapter. So you have to take these big chunky power adapters and plug all three of them in. Now, who wanted to do that? Save up your money, get a Saturn, or like most people did, get a PlayStation. Which is kind of sad because I like the Saturn. I think it had a lot of good games. Most of them didn't come to the U.S. from Japan. But
Sega definitely got taken out by Nintendo and Sony.
There were some bad decisions. We can talk about that when we finally get to Saturn games because I have a Saturn. I love my Saturn. We're going to be playing some games on the Saturn. Maybe when we do a Street Fighter 2 episode, we'll play the Saturn version. It's a pretty good port. But back to 32X. It was dead in the water. Not a lot of people supported it. So even though it could do some impressive things, it just didn't get the support it needed. Like
It's okay. I believe in you.
It was actually possible to play Sega CD games with the 32X, enhanced by 32X. There were only 5 games that did that. All 5 of them were full motion video games, which is something horrible that we may also get into in a later episode. I have a couple FMV games. Spoilers, they're not good. But we can take a look at that some other time. So it didn't get the support. It didn't have the market penetration. It died.
And to succeed, you need penetration.
You got to get out there and you got to sell the 32X. And Sega just couldn't do it. So even though it did have a few good games, which I do think that Star Wars is one of them.
Yeah, that was
I think
quite
it's very
enjoyable,
impressive.
especially being a Star Wars geek.
Good Star Wars game?
They really were not on there for the accuracy.
No. The graphics were good, though, especially for the time. The
you
gameplay
do not have 2 pilots in an X-Wing starfighter, and Admiral Akbar does not talk like he's from the Mafia, eh?
No, he is not getting a slice of pizza.
No.
Not happening.
Yay. Oh, swarm the Death Star. Come on. Let's go.
Hey, you can bullseye that exhaust port. No problem. Forget about it.
May the Force be with us all.
Yeah. Gameplay is pretty decent, arcade game, quarter sucker. I think overall it is a pretty good game. I don't know if you want to go to the trouble of getting a 32X just to play it. But if you do have a 32X, I think it's one of the games worth playing on the system.
Now, who knows? Maybe gaming is going to cycle back to this. I could see EA putting out a game with credits, and if you buy the in-game purchase, you can continue.
There you go. Real money
slam.
for continues. Oof. They've done it with some of their mobile games. They're nasty.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't play them.
Bad stuff. Anyhow, one of the few good games for 32X. I hope you enjoyed it.
It was enjoyable.
I had a good time.
If you can find a ROM of it online, maybe.
No, we don't recommend that. No. I mean, you can totally do it, but we don't recommend it because it's legal. Don't do it.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
No, don't worry about that. All right, so I was Dan Mastriani. You can find me on Twitter at NewTypeCola.
And I'm Ian Butterfield. I'm on Twitter. It's very simple. Ian G. Butterfield.
If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe. We have more on the way. We're going to play lots of classic games. We don't use ROMs. We don't download things off the internet. We play on real hardware.
Well, unless we wanted to get something off of Steam.
Yeah.
Then again,
maybe at some point,
it'd be
classic
on
games.
the computer.
PC games, we might do that. Download it.
All politically correct.
What to say is real hardware, no emulation, unless it's maybe like a collection that was actually put up by the company.
Yeah.
Might have to do that just for some games I don't have. I'm not James Rolfe. I'm not like Pat the NES punk. I don't have gigantic collections like that. But let us know in the comments if you enjoyed the episode. Let us know games you'd like to see us play. If I have it, or we can reasonably get a hold of it, we'll try to pick it up. We're probably going to focus mostly on action games just because with our shooting schedule, we have to play stuff that we can get in and out of quickly.
Mm-hmm. And let's admit, if we try playing a Pokemon game that does not already have some progress on that Game Boy cartridge edition, that's going to take forever.
Yeah, you don't want to see like Persona 3, which is an hour to actual gameplay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, great game, but not good for our recording format. Not good. Not good. It'd be troublesome. Hey, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter. Like, subscribe. I already said this. Repeating myself. Let's end the episode. Hope you liked it.
Have a good one.